Hello, and welcome to the Ladybug Watch Order channel. Miraculous Ladybug has jumped from Nickelodeon to Netflix to Disney Channel in a variety of different orders. As of February 1st, 2003, Disney has gained all the episodes of Miraculous Ladybug. Now this would be great if they were in the right order. Sadly, it seems Disney Plus is going to be following in Netflix's footsteps by putting things all wonky. Why? So once again, I will be going over what episodes are right, wrong, and why you can't trust the order that this streaming service is doing. To show what episodes are in order and which episodes are not, we are going to be using the traffic light method. Green is good to go. Yellow is caution, be careful now, this is iffy. Red is stop, no, wrong. In each season we're going to look at, the episodes are going to be color-coded this way. Let's start off by saying that there are some episodes that do need to be in a certain order, but for the most part, lots of episodes can be switched around. I just have a preferred viewing method which I think works best story-wise and thematically. So in my opinion, some episodes have better places than others, and sometimes there are orders that get it dead wrong. Disney's okay, but let's talk about where they could improve.
Season 1.
First 2 episodes, perfect. The next 3, Timebreaker first. There's positive and negatives to having it here. This does need to be before Pharaoh because that episode talks about Alex's brother, so we need to know who she is before we meet him. Right before might be a good idea too, so I'm not opposed to that idea. That's just not how I put it in my order. A negative is Chloe. I think the episode Mr. Pigeon better introduces her as a villain, so I would move that before this episode. I think this episode builds on her character arc better if that episode happens previously, but that's just my opinion. Also just me, but I think this episode is best followed by Copycat because of the 2 ladybugs followed by the 2 cat noirs.
2 ladybugs? I'm in heaven.
Another negative is Alex herself, actually. I think introducing Alex as another friend to Marinette is a bit early for the 3rd episode. Alright, let's move on to the Pharaoh. It's silly, but Adrian mentions in this episode that ladies smell better than cheese.
For one, ladies smell about 1,000 times better than that cheese.
And in the episode Annie Man, he smells Ladybug. So I think that's a fun detail. I will admit that perhaps in my order, the 2 Ollie episodes are too close together, but plenty of other episodes in Miraculous have 2 character episodes, so I suppose that's up for debate. I just think with Timebreaker, this should be a little bit lower. With Mr. Pigeon, personally, I think this works best as the 3rd episode because it mainly focuses on Ladybug and Cat Noir as a team, and then a bit as Marinette as a designer. Hawkmoth as a villain is also a little bit better developed slightly. We spend more time with him learning how evil he is. Plus Chloe's development, as I mentioned before. These 3 episodes overall won't break anything if you watch them in this order, and I think they're fine. They're just bad, fine, and great. And I think they could be better. But overall, I'm not too upset about it. Episodes 6 out of 10 are great. I do have a note about Roger Cop and Horrificator, but in relation to another episode, so overall, I'm good with this order. And now we get to talk about Origins. Origins shouldn't be in the middle of the series. It needs to be at the end. There are a million reasons for this, which will be its own video one of these days, but the main reason is that it best follows Volpina and sets up for season 2. I always approach looking at the season as if it's someone's first time watching Miraculous. Origins kind of throws in the character of Master Fu at you if you watch this for the first time, and we want to be slowly introduced to him. I'm not a fan when shows toss a character at you randomly to explain the background and exposition, do you? Plus Origins was written as a flashback to reflect on season 1 and show you what happens when you don't capture an Akuma. Moving on to Copycat, I don't know why Copycat is so low. Again, 2 ladybugs, 2 cat noirs.
Cat Noir, he really looks like you.
This episode lays out some good themes and ideas, such as Marinette stuttering, not having Adrian's number, and better explains Cat Noir's feelings for Ladybug, which hasn't been explored too much in the past episodes. In the very least, this episode has to be before Gamer, because Marinette has Adrian's number by then. Alright, Princess Fragrance. Let's talk about Master Fu in this episode, and why it needs to be before Volpina and Origins for first-time viewers. This is meant to be Master Fu's introduction. As I mentioned, Origins shouldn't be the first time we see him, and therefore it ruins the atmosphere of this episode with him if we've already seen him before. Now there are some people that want to have this episode back to back with Volpina, as the second to last episode because of Master Fu. This doesn't work because Master Fu is used as a mysterious plot point that will pay off by the end of this season. We need to let the mystery of who Master Fu is breathe for a second. It makes for a fun callback when Marinette remembers him as the guy who upped Tiki when she meets him again. If we don't put a few episodes between their interactions, we get immediate payoff of his identity, which isn't fun. We aren't meant to find out more about him in the very next episode or who he is beforehand. Also in this episode, Prince Ali is mentioned for the first time, and he's gonna be kind of a recurring character. Let's move on to Animan. Should Animan be later in the season? Maybe, but boy do I hate it. Nino having a crush on Marinette is weird. Plus he's usually with Alia anyway. I think it doesn't work with the rest of the season to have Nino develop a random crush on Marinette later.
You know I'm no good with the ladies, especially this one all of a sudden.
I prefer my order, where Nino and Alia are a couple by Lady Wi-Fi. And maybe I'm making something out of nothing, but there's a moment in Roger Cop where Nino is recording and smiling at Marinette, so I like to have those episodes pretty close together. But I might just be digging too deep into that one. In the very least, I think Alia and Nino are a couple by Horrificator. He looks at her pretty passionately there. Cat Noir also sniffs Ladybug in this episode, and as I mentioned in Pharaoh, he talks about how girls smell. It's a little detail, but I like the parallel to be close together. Alright, Simon says, spoiler warning, Gabriel is Hawkmoth. I cannot say this enough. This episode needs to be the penultimate episode. It is a travesty to be anywhere else. We've got all these hints that Gabriel is Hawkmoth, and it's tense, so it belongs at the end of the season. Why would we see this episode and then just let Gabriel do whatever he wants during the rest of the season without us suspecting his identity? Plus, it's a bit of a poetic bookend with Nino at the start of the house in Bubbler, and in this episode in Simon Says. Beginning, end. This is the first episode to really heavily mention Emily Agreste, which hasn't happened in the series, so it should occur near the end, in my opinion, especially what we learn about in Volpina/Collector. Emily is really important, and I don't like mentioning her in the middle of the series and then not being mentioned again for forever. Gabriel also notices the ring on Adrian, and that will be a plot point in a season 2 episode. Episode 19 and 20 are fine. Puppeteer, this is just a personal gripe, but I think this episode needs to be a little bit earlier. I have it by the mime, but in all reality, it probably should be green. It just feels wrong to have it so late. And I personally think that Antibug works better after Kung Fu, but that's my hot take. It's just better story-wise, in my opinion. Actually, let me just... But remember what I've said. All in all, a few adjustments would make season 1 great, but so far, besides Origins, it's good.
Season 2!
Episodes 1 through 4, great. Troublemaker is episode 5. I mean, at least Troublemaker isn't between the Style Queen episodes like it is on Netflix. Ugh. So there's that. But it is kinda high here for this season. Personally, I think this should be with the other episodes of The Rockers, Captain Hard Rock, and Frightening Gale. I have episodes 6 through 8 mixed around in my order, but it's close enough. Alright, speaking of Frightening Gale, this cannot be here before Captain Hard Rock. The reason? Luca.
My name is Luca.
Luca is seen dancing with Adrian and Marinette, so we have to know who he is beforehand. If you'd never seen the show, you'd say, who's this random boy dancing with these two? Which is actually what I did when I first watched the series, so. This episode also has to be after Captain Hard Rock because the mayor seems to have a positive view of Clara Nightingale in that episode, but because of Clara in this episode, he most likely won't go back on that opinion. So if we ignore Frightening Gale, episodes 1 through 11 are pretty okay. These next few though, ugh. The issue here is that Dark Owl needs to be earlier. Sabates needs to have Dark Owl happen before it, that's why it's in yellow. If Dark Owl moved, then this order would be fine. Mr. Damocles mentions he's a computer wit in Robustus, and he writes his computer to do something.
I heard you're interested in computing like Max and myself.
I am indeed. It's one of my hobbies. I even wrote a program for my computer, which...
And that's followed up with in Dark Owl. Dark Owl is also a good episode before Sabates because Alia helps with Marinette and Cat Noir as Cardboard Girl, and it shows that she is trustworthy and she's getting closer to them. Having them switched around wouldn't make much sense because she quickly tells Marinette how excited she is about working with Ladybug and Cat Noir. So she's excited about being Cardboard Girl after being Rena Rouge. Plus, the end of Dark Owl complements best with the beginning of Sapides. Alia and Marinette are hanging out, which could turn into a sleepover. Even if not, it ends with Marinette and Alia, and that's where the next episode begins. They really flow well into each other. So my order, Robustus, Dark Owl, and then Sapides. Got it? Siren just feels in a weird spot to me here. It does belong after Sapides, but I think we need a few episodes between them. If you remember, Cat Noir gets a bit jealous here. And Siren works better later because this episode is a bridge between learning more about the Miraculous. It's Master Fu and Adrian. Here, later, it's about the Queen Bee Miraculous. So it's the start of a new era / story. Style Queen and Queen Wasp should be next, by the way, but we'll get into that. Alright, prepare yourself. This is where it gets complicated. Lots of errors if you watch it in this order. We'll start with Captain Hard Rock. As mentioned, this needs to be before Frightening Gale because of Luca. I think it's best to have this episode paired with some others I like to call the trio of rockers following this order because they follow similar characters and themes. Alright, Frozer. This episode has to be after Reverser. Reverser introduces Mark, who we see hanging out with Nathaniel in Frozer. So they've just mixed it up. And this episode works best after a Nazi because of the ice rink and the theme of couples. So with Reverser, this has to be after Queen Wasp because she is actually mentioned at the start of the episode.
This is a team-up of Ladybug and Mighty Illustrator fighting Queen Wasp together.
Having it occur before Queen Wasp obviously spoils what happens with Chloe. And Mark is introduced and akumatized. Seeing Mark and Nathaniel hang out in Frozer will make more sense if this episode is before it. Style Queen and Queen Wasp. So these episodes do need to be together, but they need to be earlier in the season for reasons we just mentioned. So that's why we have some yellow-red mix here. As I said, it needs to be before Reverser, so it has to be Style Queen, Queen Wasp, Reverser, a Nazi, Frozer. Maledictator can also not follow these episodes, and that's because of a Nazi. A Nazi introduces Nino as Carapace, and in Maledictator, they mention Carapace.
Rena Rouge and Carapace helped Ladybug save Paris, but nobody threw them a party.
So that wouldn't make sense to mention Carapace before he's introduced, right? So this order is wrong because of all the continuity errors. The image I have here has none. Disney Plus has really screwed up these last few episodes because it'd just be confusing to watch them in, and it's even harder to explain. Ugh. Luckily, the rest of the season is fine. Santa Claus was its own special on Netflix, but it does belong here at the end of the season.
Season 3.
Literally the only thing wrong with season 3 is Chrismaster. I guess some may think it's a Christmas special like the last season, but honestly it's not all that special. So Chrismaster has to be before a time tagger so that we know who Chris is for that episode. Stormy Weather 2 also flashes back to Chrismaster, so that has to be in place before it for continuity purposes. In my order, I have Chrismaster right here as this episode.
Season 4.
Episodes 1 through 4 are good. Furious Foo's yellow because it does need to have an episode before it, and I want to make it clear that this is meant to be the 6th episode of the series. Anyone remember that time that people thought it was the 1st episode of the season? Episodes 6 and 7, good. There are just a few episodes that need to come before Guild Trip, so if those episodes are put back in order, it's fine. We'll get to those in a second. Episode 9 and 10 are good, and some of the best in the season, in my opinion. Okay, Rocketeer needs to be quite a few episodes later, mainly because of Haxon, which is right here, because of Nino's character arc. He also learns a secret in this episode that's inconsistent with a few other moments in the series, such as in Haxon. This also follows Haxon because of the dinosaurs at the beginning. Markov mentions a theory of dinosaurs to the scientists, and in the next episode, here they are. I thought it was a dream sequence when I first saw it, but anything goes in a show with magical jewels, I guess. So Wishmaker does need to follow Rocketeer, but it still needs to be later in the season. And it needs to be before Ephemeral, so that works. It does need to come after Crocodile though. Remember how Marinette is avoiding him in that episode and they become buds at the end?
I'm sorry I've been avoiding you. Buddies?
Buddies.
Yeah, that makes no sense if this episode is before it. Marinette can't go back to avoiding him and the whole buds thing. Continuity error makes no sense. Mega Leech needs to be earlier, episode 10. Mylene gets a Miraculous here, but other holders aren't called back as well. We don't see Julica or Rose join the team with a Miraculous, and that's because they haven't received their jewels yet. Simple Man doesn't have a lot of ties to other episodes, but it at least needs to be before Dearest Family, which it is here at least. It just needs to shift to later with the rest of the season, so I can't really say it's green when it needs to move. Alright, Dearest Family. First of all, the title is wrong on Disney+. What up with that? But this episode shows the villain Chi-Lin, but her debut isn't until 7 episodes later in episode 21? That's obviously an error if we keep the episodes the way that they are. While we're talking about wrong things, they also have the description messed up in Disney+. The minimal description states Ladybug and Cat Noir face Dearest Family as if they're only facing one villain. And I would call them the Dearest Family team or something, I don't know. The longer description says Tiki is acting strange and 3 supervillains show up. 4 supervillains show up actually, so. Anyway, Dearest Family is messed up on Disney+. Moving on, Crocodile has to be before Wishmaker for reasons I already mentioned about Luca and Marinette being buds. It also works best after Guilt Trip to follow Julica's arc. These next episodes are fine, but remember we want to move some episodes around so that they're in a little bit of a different order. Gabriel Agreste is way too low for so many reasons. Firstly, Gabriel gets a magical charm at the end of this episode, which then he uses later in Dearest Family, so this episode has to be much earlier than that one. It also works best after Queen Banana with Chloe and before Mega Leech because of Adrian's interactions with his father at the end. Alright, Ephemeral. So the whole point of this episode is it has to be the 100th episode.
They're launching your 100th collection tonight.
100 weeks since she disappeared. 100 times have I wanted to tell you.
For this to be so, it would need to be in 22nd place as each season has 26 episodes. Let's look at it mathematically. With this being the 4th season, this is how we get to 100. 26 plus 26 plus 26 plus 22 equals 100. So no matter what, we need to get this to the 22nd episode. Besides that, it's fine. Psychomedian, this needs to be the 5th episode of the season. It just didn't air because of production issues. Or at least that's what I've been told. But narratively, that's where it fits best anyway. Zoe also isn't included in the group of friends because she isn't meant to be around yet. Alright, Chi-Lin, one of the most obvious episodes in the wrong order. Marinette's mom is first akumatized into Chi-Lin here. In the episode Dearest Family, this villain returns. But that doesn't make sense if her debut is meant to be in this episode. With Dearest Family being earlier, this episode is very out of place. The episode Chi-Lin should be 20th, followed by Dearest Family, seen here. The rest of the episodes are good. The main problem with season 4 is they followed the airing order rather than the production order. Airing order is not the way to go. Studios will just throw out Miraculous so they can get views and money. They do not care about the timeline.
Season 5.
At the moment of making this video, season 5 is still airing. It's currently in the correct order, but I will make an updated video if there is something wrong that they do on Disney+. It needs to be in production order, as seen here. Hopefully they don't air it out of order and mess it up. And that is the current order of Miraculous on Disney Plus and why it is screwed up. You are able to give feedback to Disney Plus and tell them their episodes are out of order, but I've tried that, they've never listened to me, but go ahead, give it a try, maybe they'll listen to everybody else. In my link in the description, I do have a complaint about season 4 when it was out of order on Disney Plus. I'll do my best to upload the script that I used for this and put it down there for all the seasons. Now might be a good time to comment, vent your frustrations about how Disney has messed up the order. While you're at it, you can subscribe. I'm going to be talking a lot more about orders of Miraculous Ladybug, including origins, some other Google orders, and other messed up orders. And you can check out my last video talking about the Netflix order, because Miraculous is still on it, as of right now. Thanks gang, have a fun time, and see you later!